Hey, everybody. I'm on the road again, naturally. And joining me this morning is our dear friend Philip Bittner, who I feel like we haven't talked to in forever because of the holidays and because of the rigmarole of doing shows on the road. But I was insisting on doing this so that Phil could talk to us today, and hopefully he can be on the radio with us as well tomorrow, because there's obviously been a lot of news happening in and around Ukraine, and also the bleed over into the Syrian conflict, what's happening with Iran.
But I won't be able to fucking swear. That's
true. That's right. Now you can. So I feel like a moral responsibility to make sure that you can fucking swear about this stuff, because good Lord. Starting off, and there's so much to cover, and I'll kind of let you go as far as what you want to bring attention to, because you and I both could talk about the things that have been catching our attention lately and never cross over and have run out of things to talk about. But Lukashenko, I brought it up yesterday on my show as kind of a teaser.
Yeah.
Brought up that they were asking him about Belarus joining Russia, or what it would take, or if they would ever be, fall under Russia's umbrella or whatever, and his answer flatly was no, and that it would lead to war, which was so shockingly in parallel to what's going on with Ukraine, that his basic answer seemed to be like, we're not going to become another Ukraine, which is exactly what they were asking about, I suppose. But it's bizarre that this guy who helped facilitate a lot of this crap is like, not for me, but for thee.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember when it was the last time we spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, let's just jump in with Lukashenko and Belarus to begin with.
Yeah.
Lukashenko does not survive without Putin.
Right.
Let's just make that perfectly 100%
Sure,
clear.
sure.
So this might be a little bit of bluster. They have, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Belarus has been a particularly unique former Soviet republic, because Lukashenko relies so much on Moscow. And keep in mind, it has only been Lukashenko since 1991.
Right.
He's been the only leader in that country since the fall of the Soviet Union. So he has always been reliant on Moscow to survive.
Yeah.
And he's been able to do so quite well for quite some time until recently. And the last election, which I believe was in 2020, where like thousands and thousands of people took to the streets because it was a clearly rigged election.
Right.
And this is the election which brought to the foreground Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who I mispronounce her last name all the time, but she is the wife of a politician journalist who ran against Lukashenko and is now sitting in a prison. And the Belarusian people rose up, and at the end of the day, he had to call Daddy Vladimir in Moscow, and he sent in tanks to quell this uprising.
Right.
Now, bring it up to current days. Putin has been increasingly talking as though he is going to absorb Belarus into a union that would be much closer and tighter than it is. It would be paramount, actually, to becoming part of a mini Soviet Union. So Belarus would lose its sovereignty. So he kind of has to make those statements. But when push comes to shove, more likely than not, he would bow to Putin.
Right.
The other thing is, though, and this is looming on the horizon, is the fact that they do have elections coming up. They'll probably, well, not probably, they will be sham elections.
Right.
But in March of this year, so in about 3 months now, there is going to be another election. And I suspect it's going to be very different than the last time. First off, Russia does not have, Russia is pretty bogged down with a lot of stuff globally. Whether it's Syria, or, and this is another topic I'd love to talk about at greater length, is what's happening in Georgia. And I don't know if you've seen those magnificent, incredible footage from New Year's where they laid out a table all along the central street of Tbilisi, the capital. and they had what is called a traditional supra, which is just a feast with lots of wine
Right.
and food, and it's just a joyous, wonderful party. And you eat too much and you drink too much, and everybody enjoys themselves. And they had that amidst this long running street protests. And I guess sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart. That's who I have on. I have on this weekend. Our guest is a Georgian woman who is a author and works at a think tank. So we're going to be discussing this at length there. But Russia is deathly afraid of losing control of the Caucasus, and they have all but lost Armenia as well. Azerbaijan has closer ties to Ankara than it does to Moscow. And this is an area of the Russian Federation that's often referred to as the soft underbelly, that they're culturally very different. This is where the Persian Empire and the Russian Empire clashed for centuries. And their holdings in the Caucasus are fraying. And it couldn't go further into the Federation itself. There are places like Ingushetia and Dagestan. These are republics inside the Russian Federation, but they're more similar to, like Azeris or the Georgians, or they're peoples of the Caucasus, of the mountain Caucasus. So they've got that happening. They've got Belarus looming on the horizon. Lukashenko can say whatever he wants. At the end of the day, he's going to do what Putin tells him to do.
Right.
But if Belarus becomes another major issue for them, so they've got Georgia, Ukraine, and now potentially Belarus ripe for an uprising. President Tsikhanovskaya is right next door in Lithuania. She's ready to, if the people rise up, she may very well. She's a pretty impressive leader, actually. So, look, all of this is to say that Russia's empire is fraying at the edges because of their adventurism. And, then, of course, we also have to talk about Syria and the naval fleet down there. It's just things are not going well for Russia. It's not going great for the Ukrainians on the ground here. The fight is not going well, and we got some serious issues that are going to have to be addressed internally within Ukraine. But things are going really bad for the Russians. And then to add to that, one more point, and then you can ask me any question you'd like, and we can go down whatever avenue you'd like. But let me just, finally, as a synopsis on this, well, two more things as a synopsis on this thing, is that additionally, they've cut off the tap. Cut off the tap.
The gas, right.
There's a pipeline. There's a pipeline that runs through northern Ukraine, and it feeds fossil fuels, mostly natural gas, to Slovakia, Moldova, and a couple of others in that kind of region. They get a lot of but the contract ended, and the authorities in Kiev said, why would we even consider re-upping this contract? It's just going to give you money to buy weapons to kill us with. So they've turned off the tap. The Slovaks are really ticked off about it. In particular, the Slovaks are really ticked off about it. And they've got a kind of a pseudo-Orban in charge in Hungary, in Slovakia. So, there's no love lost anyhow. So there's that going on. And then finally, we have been getting pelted. Absolutely pelted. I mean, on New Year's Day, we got hit with a drone that evaded all Kiev's air defense. In no small part because apparently they've adapted the Shahid, the Iranian drone, with what they claim, the Ukrainians claim, are parts, components that are from China, and they fly very much more silently. So it is
just electric motors.
It's electric motors, and it is thought. I mean, and it does. I mean, because the old Shahids, as we've talked about, they sound like mopeds. These things are not quiet, so you can put a spotlight up, base it on the sound, illuminate it, target it, bring it down. But this thing, apparently, this new iteration of the Shahid that they have developed in conjunction with China, apparently, or at least complicit,
Right.
flies much more quietly. So we got hit hard. That was that. I think that death toll's up to about 5, but it was a big blast, and it destroyed part of a building in the diplomatic or governmental and diplomatic section of the city. So the parliament is there, the presidential palace is there. There are some embassies, but most of the embassies are up in a different part of town. Like the American, the Polish, and the Brits are all in a very, very separate part of town. But I think like there are various like North African, I think Morocco is back there and things like that. But there's also other governmental buildings. And it is an indication that they're following through on what Putin was threatening, and that is to target the leadership in Kiev.
Right.
So
Right.
there's I'm sure I've forgotten something, but all of those things are happening. Belarus, Georgia, the Navy. I think the Navy issue is fascinating. We could talk about that in depth, but we could. Anyhow, whatever you'd like to talk about.
Yeah. So there are a couple of aspects of. I'm not surprised that that they are using what are effectively electric motors. They might be even pilfering them from other stuff, because that turns. Because if you have I think both the Shahed drone and a lot of drones are designed in the idea of circling for a long period of time and then crashing with whatever their payload is, or taking surveillance photos. And especially the Iranians and the Chinese are known for their surveillance drones on their own people. And so all their stuff is built for that particular thing. The Russians just want it to fly a certain distance and crash. That's where the Ukrainians have gotten way ahead on this stuff, is that they are stacking and 3D printing these quadcopters and octocopters that can carry a decent payload, but they're not going very far. And they have a specific task, and then they just throw another one and another one. And it wouldn't,
those are kind of like Battlefront. Those are Battlefront drones.
Yeah, exactly.
What you use on the line.
Right. And so Russia's just using they're using longer range Battlefront drones, because that's what you would need to hit a city like that. They're not hover drones, and they're not surveillance drones per se, like have been normal. And so the Shaheds are noisy and they fly around, and in a country like Iran, or in some of the areas that they control in Syria and other places, the noise of it scares the living shit out of the locals. It's there to make you nervous. There's a valuable reason why it makes noise. Because you want the people to feel like you're watching them. You want the people to feel like they're in danger, and at any time you could wipe them out. This is not a similar thing. This is much more like a covert ops use of a drone. And so it's no surprise they would modify it. That said, Russia just put I want to say 55.65% tariffs on a bunch of Chinese goods, including furniture parts and other stuff. And it's made everybody sort of obviously question their no limits friendship that they allegedly have. And there's been this back and forth, like the Russians and the Chinese have been kind of balking at each other's demands, which is why BRICS will never happen, and a myriad of other things. But there is, I even think one of the tipping points has been the North Korean soldiers, because China's always kind of used North Korea as this kind of we'll let the Wolverine off the leash if you mess with us too much, United States or Europe. We'll stop, supplying some of the stuff to North Korea that we give them, so they'll start to get riled up because they can't get foodstuffs and other things, or we'll give them permission to do their worst in hacking or in military attacks. Now they've got, because Russia's kind of circumvented them, and has a direct relationship with North Korea at this point. I think China's getting a little pissed that Russia's using the same tactic with North Korea. We'll supply them, we'll support them, and kind of cold shoulder China in a couple of areas. It's the tension going on there is reaching an absurd level. So obviously the fallout from Syria and the idea that I don't know if you've heard anything about this where you are about Bashar al-Assad being there was an assassination attempt on him or any of that nonsense.
Poison attempt.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Which it could just be a panic attack from the fact that you're a kind of a weenie and you fell as a leader of this country. You can't tell. But his wife, who was trying to go to England, apparently has cancer and is seeking treatment. Now, that might be bullshit just to get out of the country, right? She could be trying to use that as a manipulation point to get out of Russia. But we don't know, and we won't know until they're both they've both been Snowdened, right? Replaced with a chatbot. So, yeah.
I mean, the only source on the Assad poisoning is the SVR, to my mind. I don't think there's an independent source yet on that. And I don't know. I really don't know.
Block of salt.
What's to gain in killing Assad? I mean, it's So
not amongst the Russians. I agree. Not amongst the Russians, but certainly amongst any sympathizers. Yeah. Any other sympathizers with the people who took over? Maybe, and again, there's this whole, pushback with the Uyghurs and ISIS-K in Afghanistan and their linkage to ISIS, which is making a bit of a comeback, poorly as it may be, in Syria at this time, that their communications have opened back up. So that it may simply be something like that.
I mean, there's motivation. I mean, of course, there's motivation. Assad has, enemies lined up around the block.
Right.
So of course it's possible. I actually don't care either way.
Me too. I agree. Fuck him. And he's no longer a factor anyways, which seems like, again, as it were, a waste of poison. So it's a very peculiar aspect to this. Now, the next thing,
it's a weird. But the fleet that had to leave Syria is particularly interesting. to me because apparently they're looking at rocking up to Benghazi, and mooring in Libya, which would be a bizarre turn of events. Not least of which because. The port, I've been to Benghazi. I've seen that port. The port at Benghazi and at Tripoli, both of those ports, don't have the capacity for taking on those ships. So the best they could do is keep them stationary there. They can't because they can't refit and repair. So they can't go to Libya and then do a long journey all the way around to either like Kaliningrad or to Murmansk or to Arkhangelsk up there where they have their North Sea fleet. I mean, look, I have touched upon this several times, but I will mention it yet again. It is under the man who is sat in the Kremlin wearing the crown at the time of the most disastrous losses in Russian history since I don't know when.
Right.
The Russo-Japanese War was as bad as this because they're losing assets that they have had in their empire for centuries.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and they have always aspired to be, since Peter the Great, they have always desired to be a great naval power. And instead, they have lost about half of their naval power in total. They're either boxed in the North Sea because now Finland is part of NATO. Same goes for Kaliningrad, for the Baltic Sea Fleet. Now they've lost it wasn't a full-fledged fleet in Syria, but it was still a naval asset where you could stop in and at that facility you could rearm, refit, refuel.
Right.
And of course, now the Black Sea is not theirs anymore. It's just devastating. I don't know how he survives this war when it actually ends. This has been one of the most disastrous things to happen to Russia in centuries. And it was on his watch. So, anyhow, but that's Syria.
Right.
Those are the two things.
Well, and then I love the fact that first of all, Biden has been basically like planting almost every week. There's been an addition of arms, aid, support, and secondarily through our European partners and through NATO allies and through direct support that has happened almost every week since the election. And it's, again, it's a shame that they had to hold back in an attempt to try and worry about voters who weren't going to show up for dumber reasons in the first place. But the Ukrainians now will have are working on a missile of their own, apparently, under, while this is going on, that I believe is called the Doodle Bug. It translates whatever the Ukrainian Moscow Malading Doodle Bug missile. But it's like a massive, super futuristic thing. But yeah, it's a cruise missile. Yeah. But it seems to be named after a fishing lure, as far as I can tell. But
could be. But I don't know the name. But I do know that Zelensky's been putting in orders for lots and lots of missiles, lots and lots of drones.
Yeah,
they're even going to start exporting. They're even going to start. They estimate sales in 2025 could be as high as $1 billion. So
right,
a great, because this is another, and one of the things that Biden did in the last group, in the last drop of money, is that it was for sustaining the Ukrainians economically.
Yeah,
to provide pensions and for engineers to make sure they get their wages, which are desperate. We cannot survive this winter without our engineers, our civil engineers, because they're the ones that get the lights back on when they hit a substation or something like that. And this was money. It was this was one of those instances, which of course the Republicans scream bloody murder about, where we just wrote a check, and we just said, "Here, money."
Yeah,
and that's great, because that is essential,
necessary, right?
Yeah, and we've spoken about, I think, the ammunition. What was it? Right before Christmas, that big announcement of sending a bunch of like Patriot and ATACMS and HIMARS, the things that the ammo, basically. Yeah. That stuff you can put on a plane and fly it over, and it gets where it's going pretty darn quick.
Yeah.
The problematic issue, and we've talked about this also, but I think we're gonna. I don't know. Fingers crossed. Is that I think there are some ships. I think there are some ships right now in the Mid-Atlantic, or somewhere. They're either on the eastern seaboard, getting filled up, or they're Mid-Atlantic already. And this will be the thing I'm hoping for. And again, this is just me kind of having talked to military logistics leaders and being around the United States military when it decides to move stuff. The momentum, it gets to a place where it's unstoppable. And I think they waited for the last big thing before the Trump inauguration is going to be a whole bunch of Bradleys and artillery pieces, and I don't think so many Abrams, because the Abrams really don't work here. Our main battle tank is not suited for this war, but our Bradleys and our old M113 personnel carriers and our artillery pieces, and maybe more HIMARS and maybe more Patriot systems. But the big ticket items, the things that are heavy, that need to be loaded onto ships and brought over here, like the merchant marines did in the Second World War. I think I don't want to jinx it, but I think very close to the period when Trump's inauguration happens, when the handover happens, that we're going to see a whole bunch of heavy stuff being disembarked at Gdansk and brought down to the Polish border. And brought across.
Agreed. So a couple of things. One is, in regard to the Shahed drones that you were talking about, the Iranian ones, not only are they making them quieter with electric motors, but they have downed one had a Starlink terminal or attachment on it. which is not surprising to anyone. The Russians are using Starlink as their primary battle satellite system. Again, not shocking to anyone. And then, we talked a little bit about like the kind of like Lukashenko distancing himself, but there has been like seemingly a lot of people are speaking more bolder, like in a bolder fashion against Putin directly, which is, we've seen this a couple of times. But the idea that Trump is somehow going to fall into, his support for Russia will dictate what he's going to do. I feel like he's going to see blood in the water and not care. Ultimately, I don't think he helps Ukraine necessarily, but the idea that he pulls back is probably fairly slim, and they can't even work it out with the other countries because they have no relationships with anybody that's going to convince them to leave too. But the Lavrov statement, which was, I believe, a day or day and a half ago, that they rejected Trump's deal offer flat out and pretty vocally.
Yeah, because it was basically the same as Biden's. Yeah, is what they said.
Yeah. Well, and again, I will remind everybody, it's been more than 24 hours since the election, and apparently one phone call didn't fucking do it, because that's what Trump said every day. Anytime someone asked him about this conflict, and Israel and Gaza for that matter, he was like, one phone call, it would be so easy, but we have stupid people running things. I can make one phone call and have that settled right away in 24 hours, he said, from the election, not from inauguration. Now he's going to punt and punt and punt to inauguration, but it seems to me that that's not going to happen either. By any stretch. There's no 24 hours after the inauguration when this all of a sudden comes to a quick and a swift and clean close. And he's, if he doesn't know it, we have to remind every maggot in the world, as far as my audience is concerned and stuff. They need to be reminded on the regular that this never happened, that it was always a lie, and he's not going to be able to do it. He's not. It's not happening.
No, he's not, for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, despite what despite what is out there in the information sphere about the advances that are being made in Donbass, and let's make no mistake about it, Ukraine is losing territory. They're being pushed back. They're getting pushed out of the Donbass. They've been pushed out of a town called Pokrovsk. More or less, and they fall back on a town that I've been to many, many times, and is basically the gateway to the Donbass, and that's a town called Kramatorsk. Kramatorsk is a fortress. It's an industrial factory town. It's where they used to build tractors there. They've got ironworks. They've got coal, coal, kind of factories, and it will resemble Mariupol if they push on to Kramatorsk, and it will be devastating for them. Okay, so it is true they are gaining ground, but I'm not a doom spreader. Right. I still say there are two things that need to happen for Russia to get victory in Ukraine. They have to change the administration in Kiev, and they have to take control of Odessa. They have to either destroy or take control of Odessa. And Odessa, because they control the Black Sea, and there's another wonderful story about the Black Sea. Have you heard about the sea drones that are now have anti-air missiles on them, and they're knocking planes out of the air over the Black Sea, and they don't have a navy? As long as Odessa is a threat to Crimea, they can never be secure
safely hold
on the peninsula. Right. And this is what so much of this entire war has been about, is the Black Sea Fleet and access to a warm water port and access to the Mediterranean. This is a huge part of what this entire war is about. And unless they take Odessa, which they are not going to do, they will have lost this war. And if they don't change the administration in Kiev. Now, if they somehow get Zelensky to come on board with some sort of ceasefire that puts the war in a stasis, until the Russians can kind of recover, assuming they get those sanctions lifted. The Russians will just rearm and come again. And so I find it I will find it extraordinarily shocking if Zelensky would agree to anything that would pose just a pause. You have to have safety guarantees.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, they're just going to come back in 5 years. They really are. They're not going to stop.
No. And there was a general on Fox News, a retired general yesterday that I did a clip about on the regular show, who was making that very case. And, again, in this kind of like death becomes her now a warning moment where like all of a sudden all of Trump's bullshit about how easy this is to clean up and how the Russians will, he knows exactly what to say to have peace again and stop this and da-da-da-da. This guy was like, no, the Russians don't mean it. If they gained anything they didn't fight for on the battlefield, if you give them an inch that they did not take with the blood of their own soldiers, they are going to attack again. They are just going to. Mm-hmm. And there's no two ways about it. That's how it's going to go down. And I would argue that if they didn't have to fight hard for an area, if the Ukrainians were just lacking artillery and weren't able to fight back, if you give them that ground, it's the same thing. They will see that as tacit permission to continue attacking and try again.
Ukrainians don't have an endless supply of reserve. Look, they want this war to end. Absolutely want this war to end. Mm-hmm. But having said that, we are very far off from that.
Right.
Very far off from that, because the Ukrainians know what it means to buckle to Moscow's whims and will. And look, this is the third time in about 100 years plus, at least, that they have fought a war of independence. They fought a war of independence in 1919 to 1921.
Right.
They fought a war of independence during the Second World War, and they're fighting this one. And I can tell you from living here, again, not an endless reserve of strength.
Right.
But your average Ukrainian is going to be like, no. So in order to subdue these cities as they move forward, and God forbid, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. But God forbid there are tanks that are rolling down outside my window here. These Russian tanks are rolling down outside. They're going to need, and the only way that they are going to suppress this population is through some pretty drastic, violent means. We're talking kangaroo courts. We're talking rounding up people by the thousands. And we're talking about either chucking them in god-awful concentration camps, or even worse. The Russians have shown a capacity for doing this in the past. So is Europe, which freaked the hell out when there was Srebrenica.
Yep.
They still rend their clothing over Srebrenica. When Russia does what it is going to have to do to subdue Ukrainians and Ukraine as a nation, it'll make Srebrenica look like a picnic in the park. It's going to be, and I don't want to be glib about it, because it will be a god-awful thing to see, because it will be something we thought we left in the past, and it will be tens and tens of thousands of dead people brutally murdered by the Russians. They will not. They don't play nice with this kind of stuff. Now, you mentioned earlier that there were countries that were kind of getting
bolder.
Sick of this shit.
Yeah, right.
And you're right. You're right. I do think that there are Western countries, and there's a lot of stuff going on the continent with a lot of Russian money backing up a lot of far-right groups, and using immigration as a weapon, and using far-right rhetoric as a weapon, supported by Moscow. You get a lot of bang for your buck. But there's also a growing, very vocal Western sentiment of, we got to do something about the Russians, because this is getting to a point where if the Ukrainian thing absolutely 100% does collapse, suddenly we have Russian troops bumped up against Poland, a NATO member. How long before they go for a Baltic state, where first it's some sort of riot by ethnic Russians who are angry that they can't speak Russian, or they're not getting, they're not able to hold Russian and Estonian passports or some sort of thing. They do a proxy uprising. The government clamps down. Moscow says you can't do that. We have to go in and protect them.
Right.
Estonia is a NATO state, so what do we do then? But there's a growing recognition in continental Europe, and I think in no small part because they do recognize that we're not great allies right now. We're not reliable under Trump. Not just under Trump, but I mean, there's a sentiment of like, let's abandon everything, and which is just insane to me.
Right.
But there are growing voices in Central and Western Europe, Scandinavia, the Baltics, all these places where they are waking up to the fact that this is not something that they can just hope will go away. If we just give enough money and arms to the Ukrainians, they'll fight it. We'll figure it out. Maybe they'll get into a stalemate. We don't want to escalate with the Russians, but if we can have some sort of status quo where we can kind of try and maybe get like a Minsk III agreement where everything gets frozen in amber, that's a pipe dream. And a lot of Western leaders are starting to realize there will be no Minsk III. We can't do a Minsk III.
Right.
Because the Russians are clearly in a state where they can't go back, but they can't go forward.
Right.
Because their entire economy is a war economy. They've mobilized hundreds of thousands of men. Their economy is in the shitter. And if you suddenly have hundreds of thousands of traumatized soldiers coming back, what do they, or alternatively, what do they just sit in Donbass,
right,
in some sort of DMZ peacekeeping, and then that's just gonna, that's a problem all of its own as well. So they're in a catch-22 situation, and I think European leaders are starting to realize,
right,
because of that, they're just going to keep coming. So the West is waking up. America will have, again, we'll have to wait and see what happens when the shoe drops with old, the orange bloviator. But at least the Europeans are starting to wake up. Did you happen to see, by the way, and another reason why they're waking up to it is because the Russians are as belligerent as ever. Did you see their New Year's Eve? Did you see any of their New Year's
they're
Eve,
like, they're special. Right. Ugh.
That they do every year, and it is so gauche. I know that makes me sound like an elitist and a snob, but it's just tinsel and, the illusion. Yes. The illusion of giving a shit about Christmas or anything, along those lines.
Yeah. It's just stupid. And the idea that they've been all in because of the sort of Tucker Carlson contingent. They have to sell this idea of Russian Christianity as a primary driving force of their society, which it absolutely is not.
No.
It isn't.
No.
It's not.
No.
And it's just goofy. And by the way, I want to remind everybody you're watching Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. This is Philip Bittner. He's got a show called On the Edge, and it's on. There's a brand new episode every Sunday on his YouTube channel. Please check it out and subscribe to it. There's
first one of 2025 this Sunday with a woman who's we had a great conversation about Georgia, which we can't forget about.
No, and. If I may, this is the kind of thing you can expect to see as we go into leading up to the inauguration. This was I think this is what you're talking. This is December 30th, but U.S. sending $5.9 billion in aid for Ukraine ahead of Trump inauguration. This would be the financial aid and the support that they were looking for. In military aid and budget support. This was the direct kind of payment stuff to help them out, along with a rather large shipment of arms and the like that will cover their needs for the most part, along with our European partners, for the rest of the year at the very least. And then Trump will be, I think, put in a situation where he is going to have to make a decision about whether he bows completely to Putin or he plays the status quo, or somebody in the Senate talks him into, tacit support, and he hates it and he fights it, but he still goes along with it in the same way that he went along with the sanctions and got all miffed. If you'll recall, when there was a point where Russian spies were, activated in all these countries, and they busted a huge ring of them, and a bunch of European countries kicked out, I think it was 6 diplomats or spies each in these other countries. And the United States, we had 50 of these folks, and we kicked them out. And Trump got mad because he just wanted to kick out 6 so we could be just like the rest of Europe and not get in trouble with his handlers, apparently, in Moscow. And but it didn't change anything, because the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate National Security Committee and or whatever there's a caucus of national security guys that get clearance in the Senate and in the House, and those guys were like, "Nah, we're gonna. These guys are, they gotta go, all of them. You're not keeping any of these dickheads." So,
and rightfully so, so,
right. So
it also just occurred to me. Remember also another reason why the Europeans are kind of waking up to this stuff,
right?
And not that hadn't been awake to it before, but again, I think that they thought that they could do this with the least amount of pain to themselves, to the least amount, and they're waking up to the fact that they can't just not ignore it, because obviously they're not, but they, to kind of like half-assed it in the hopes that we can make it all go away. One of the things that has burst that illusion is what happened between Finland and Estonia with the dragging of the cables.
Right. Yes.
Where a ship that had been, docked in, I think it had stopped in either Murmansk or Arkhangelsk, and then it came down. And I think it was flying it wasn't flying under a Russian flag, obviously. And it just ripped a whole bunch of these cables. And then the Finns said, "Hey, you can't do that."
Yeah.
And they sequestered the boat, and they went on board, and it was a spy. It was kitted out with all kinds of spy tech,
right,
and all the rest of it. And so now the Baltics and the Scandinavians are starting to talk about, hey, we better start doing like spot checks. We better just start pulling over ships in this lane, in these waters, because we're now going to have to step up our efforts to control these waters, because Russia is clearly trying to screw the connections between, in particular, the Scandinavian states and the Baltic states. So that's another shock to the system that I think has woken them up. We'll have to see how it goes in 2025, but I'm seriously hoping that the Europeans do really step up their measures, and I think it's possible, but obviously Moscow's going to be the disruptor that it always is.
Right.
We can play at that game, though. We could help Belarus. We could help Georgia. We would put sanctions on the Russian-backed elements within Georgia. So we got sanctions coming in on them, which is a good thing. Hit the kind of Russian proxies there in Georgia. And then, Ukraine is going to continue to fight, and their loss in, Syria is going to be devastating for them. So, and the ruble is tanking.
Yeah.
Gazprom, which is more than just a company, it is a pillar of their economy, is trading, below $1, I believe it is.
Yeah.
They're operating in the red. They're not doing great. There's a lot. Don't let people tell you that, like, the Russian economy is withstanding all these BS sanctions. Well, they just lost a pipeline in Ukraine. That was a lot of money for them. That ain't happening anymore. They're already under massive strain. No matter how much they wanted to party on New Year's Eve, your average Russian is starting to see, some empty shells and things like that. They're under enormous strain.
Yeah.
Do they crack? I don't know. But Ukraine's got more fight.
Oops, hold on.
I don't know. I don't know how much more.
Let's see if I can show this. I want to show you this real quick.
I don't know how much more strain the Russians. Yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah, Putin's gas giant stocks plunge after dire earnings report. This is, I don't know why this isn't showing the whole article. Hold on, I'll show you this, whatever, hide reader. The Russian government has instructed Gazprom, once Russia's biggest company by revenue, not to pay out dividends following record losses and a plummeting share price. This, by the way, was before the Ukrainians shut off the pipeline that went through their territory. Before that, they also cut off supplies to Transnistria in Moldova, the little area that they've had, because of on their own. Let's see. Earlier this month, Gazprom Group, which also includes oil and power businesses, announced a net loss of 629 billion rubles, 6.9 billion for last year, the first since 1999. And that's pretty large. That means they were bullshitting about the last 2 years. A decree on the government website dated May 18th ordered Gazprom not to provide for the payment of dividends on ordinary registered shares for 2023. This is the older version of the thing. Hold on one second. Let me get the
It's interesting that they would point out 1999. I mean, not only because it's just a fact.
Hold on.
But what was happening in 1999?
Right.
I was in Moscow in 1999. Mm-hmm. That was the year of the ruble devaluation that had a run on the banks, and it was the thing I contend to this day. And I recognize that there are fellow Russia watchers who disagree with me. I've actually been in debates about this.
Sure.
Where people counter me on this. But I think that the ruble devaluation in 1999, which I am sure that the Gazprom, the lowering of the share price that they quote there in that article from 1999, that those two things are connected.
Right.
The devaluation of the ruble was one of the major points where they started to look for somebody to replace Yeltsin. Mm-hmm. Yeltsin had a gray cardinal, a guy by the name of Voloshin, who really was. I mean, Yeltsin in his later years was a drunk and an embarrassment, and Russians didn't.
When before he was just a drunk.
Yeah. But when he started doing this dance in public and falling over and all that kind of stuff, it got to a little. It was getting to that point. We were headed towards, well, who's going to replace the drunk guy?
Yeah.
But the devaluation, I think, was the straw that broke the camel's back, and they immediately started looking for a replacement. And they went through a series of, prime ministers, so that they could prime somebody for the presidency, and eventually, of course, they landed on Putin. And then they had to make agreements with his entourage and mainly it was Yeltsin's daughters and this guy Voloshin. They had to negotiate a handover of power to Putin.
Right.
And it all started in this, not all of it, but it was accelerated significantly by this 1999 incident.
Right.
So if we compare that to what is happening now, I would argue that what is happening now is far, far worse than Yeltsin being a drunk on the global stage. And being a public embarrassment, or even the devaluation of the ruble.
Right.
What is happening to Russia right now is an existential threat, and they know it. And,
So sorry, I was showing the parallel article and kind of what you were talking about. The other one. This is the one. This is the current one. Gazprom shares hit their lowest price in 15 years, capping a disastrous year for the linchpin of Russia's economy. It's let's see, share price at a 15-year low comes after the company posted its first annual loss since 1999 in May. The EU is pushing to phase out its use of Russian gas, by the way, with the help of the Ukrainians, because it's just not going to happen, impacting Gazprom's European market share, which will be zero by, May. According to Russian outlet RBC, Gazprom's 106.1 ruble share price on Tuesday represented its lowest value since January of 2009. As of Wednesday, the share price had dropped a further 105.75 rubles. In comparison, just before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Gazprom's share price hovered around 300 rubles. So that should give you some indication of it's been cut in half, I'm sorry, by 2/3. The other thing was, and let's see if I can bring this in. Where is it? That's their price there. It's one. Yeah. So this is the point where they're going to halt gas supplies to Moldova. Yeah, yep. They started yesterday or day before yesterday. Russia's state-owned energy.
The moment the contract was up, they were like, "Contract's up. We're not renewing it. Why would we?"
Right.
All 100% legal. I mean, all above board. But it's that's going to hurt.
Right. So Gazprom said in an online statement that it reserved the right to take further action, including terminating its contract with Moldova, Moldova's main gas operator, in which the Russian company owns a majority stake. The cessation of gas will stop supplies to the Kuchurigan power plant, the country's largest, which is situated in the separatist pro-Russian Transnistria region. Those guys are done. I mean, they're going to need the regular Moldovan government for their energy, or they're going to have to get it from Ukraine, which is hilarious.
Yep.
No,
we have look. 2025 is going to be hard.
Yeah,
it's going to be really hard. I'm making no bones about it. I am deeply worried about Putin. About Putin. A little Freudian slip there.
Yeah,
I am deeply worried about Trump.
Yeah,
and what he is going to do, because again, I am of the firm belief that he's compromised. I really do. I know.
Yeah,
it puts everybody pushes back on me about this. Well, not everybody, but people do push back on me about this. And I don't know how compromised he is, but he is compromised. There's no, I mean, what happened in 2016, if he wasn't compromised prior, he's certainly compromised now, because he knows that they influenced that election. He knows how much that they put him in office. And so when push comes to shove, and they can't be, both Putin and Trump can't be too overt about this.
Yeah.
They have to play their cards right. And Musk.
Yeah.
I mean, Musk is compromised by the Kremlin as well, because of his, the amount of aluminum that he gets, or lithium that he gets. I mean, the guy's a full, he's fully fluent in Russian. He's circled around the Russian sphere an awful lot. And you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. I think that triumvirate of Musk, Trump, and Putin, makes Ukraine's 2025 a pretty scary proposition. But they're not going to stop fighting, and they're not going to surrender.
Nope.
And it's an existential threat for the Ukrainians just as much as it is in many ways for the Russians.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a really difficult year. I think they're going to lose more territory. Yes, there's the Azerbaijani airline
so
crash,
I wanted to get your Rob Glenn is waiting in the wings. Whoops, get out of here. Rob Glenn is waiting in the wings to talk to us for the Friday Eye portion of the show, and will be with us in just 1 second. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this on our way out.
Ask him what Putin said recently about AI.
Yeah,
and that they're going to be investing hugely in AI, and they think whoever gets the advantage with AI, is going to win in this great fight between Russia and the West.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So I was just asking.
We'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Azerbaijan airline crash. It is now. It's now all but, maybe there's some holdouts in Russia that are still dancing around this, but they know they shot it down. A passenger plane was shot down in Azerbaijan by Russian anti-aircraft, artillery batteries or whatever it was. And I forget how many civilians were killed, but it was
30-something.
Yeah.
My memory is.
Right. It was a Russian anti-aircraft system. And Putin's not, admitting it, but he's apologizing for it. That's so them. It's so Putin. Right.
I'm not saying it's like O.J. Simpson. I'm not saying I killed her.
If I
but
did
if
it.
I did kill her, this is how. Yeah, if I did it, sort of thing.
Right.
What I find most atrocious about that incident, by the way, and by the way, as we talk about the Caucasus, another plug for this week's episode. Do tune in.
Yeah.
8 p.m. Kiev time. I think it's 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern. We do talk about this a little bit because the Azeris are pissed off about this.
Sure.
And again, that's another fraying within the Caucasus. And Russia is having enough problems. Moscow is having enough problems without the Caucasus really, really breaking from them. So we do talk about this a little bit. But from my perspective, one of the most awful parts about this was even after they hit it, the pilot said, "Can we come in for a landing?" And look, it's if you admit your mistake, they're in a war.
Yeah.
It could have been a Ukrainian drone. Maybe they missed
Right.
whatever. I'm not. That's me stretching my
credulity about it. Yes, agreed.
Credulity about it to the utmost length. But let's say that they, oopsie, sorry about that. Come on in for a landing. Terribly sorry. That
they could have lived. They could have survived. Right.
They could have survived. But the worst thing, I mean, I'm sure it would have been a tragedy no matter what, because those things you don't fool around. Look at MH17 at the beginning of the Ukraine war in 14.
Right.
But they refused them the right to land because they wanted to force them over the ocean, over the sea.
Right.
And fly, and they had to fly to Azerbaijan, hoping that they would crash into the sea and all forensic evidence would be lost to them.
Right.
And that's just the sickest kind of cynicism. And but those pilots are heroes for even getting some folks who could walk away. So.
Yes, right. And typical, though, I would say, of Russia. Thank you so much, Philip Bittner. By the way, we will see you tomorrow for the radio show as well.
Indeed. But I'll watch my language.
I completely understand, and we will see you tomorrow. I'll shoot you some stuff later on so that we can kind of narrow in our hour that we have, especially with breaks and all that kind of stuff. The stuff we will want to talk about, and we'll of course take questions from our chat room and the like. So appreciate it, brothers. Stay safe.
All right, all the best, guys. Take care.
All right. Cheers. And right now I'm going to bring in Rob Glenn. There he is from Root Design for Friday Eye. I'm sure you heard a little bit of what Phil was talking about in terms of I find it hilarious that Russia's like, we're totally going to dominate when it comes to AI. I got to say, it sounds very stupid to me. The idea, it sounds like the kind of talk we hear about people who have no idea about the material necessity of how all this stuff works. And I find it craven and dumb, almost like they're trying to manipulate people online to believe it. Right?
Sure. But in terms of what is the use of AI for them, I suppose, it's not much different than what they're already doing.
No.
So they're basically just saying, we want to do the same thing, except instead of all the people we get to do it, enslaved to do it, however, pushed to do it, then we'll just have AI do that and it'll do it automatically.
Right.
What's the benefit to them other than just making it go a little faster? Yeah,
from a war-fighting standpoint, the only benefit of AI is that it will make cold, calculated decisions without any regard for humanity. Is the idea, and
that's what they already do.
Right, exactly. The Russians are like, that's my fucking job. So I don't know why they would actually think this in any respect. So
since we're on this topic for a second before we dive too deep in.
Yeah.
I've been wondering I've been thinking about a possible tactic to move forward. You were talking a little bit about what Trump's motivation is.
Right.
His motivation and maybe somehow figuring out how to move his
counter
motivation
that
to where
counter
that. I would suggest that a good way to do it is how the Russians do it. And that is go full on and say to Trump, this is your opportunity to take out Putin. And it would prove that you're not Russia.
Right.
That you had nothing to do with Russia. It would ingratiate you with all the dictators you love. that would make Europe owe you, and you would be the hero of all time.
Oh yeah,
Ukraine.
you want a tower?
So
you want a
just
tower
go
in Europe? Go for it, dum dum. Right.
Go all in and make it his idea, and show him like how it's beneficial to him and his legacy to defend Ukraine and take out Russia.
Right. I'm 100% with you. I think in many ways, like it's hard though to track how dough-headed he is right now, because he absolutely is.
Yeah, no, I'm just using it as an alternative tactic to just kind of screw with them.
Yes, right.
Because it muddies the water.
For sure.
And that's the tactic that Russia uses in their propaganda. They just muddy the water. Like we can use that to our advantage as well. It works the same way both ways.
Right. So I guess the question for all of us over the last little bit, and excuse me 1 second while I move this over so my computer doesn't overheat, the good old Rode computer. Because hanging out with you always cooks my computer. I'm just saying, Rob Glenn, you cook my computer. It sounds like
we gotta get you a fan. Stand.
Yeah, but they're all noisy for production. Like, but I mean, yours is great.
Mine,
right. No, I guess it's the new. The new microphones on Macs are a little better. I guess I've got concerns from 2006. So you and I were going to talk about a couple of things today, not the least of which is the Gemini, this ability of Gemini to see your desktop, which is the Google AI. Yes. While you're working and comment on what you're doing and help you do stuff, which is just
Okay, so let me explain for a second. So we're going to show this to everybody that's watching, but today's not the day because it'll probably take down Hal's computer. But Google just released something called Google AI Studio, I believe is the name of it.
Yes.
If you Google that. If you Google AI Studio, it will come out. Yeah. And what it is it's basically like a web page, and it uses Gemini, and it's got basically combined all the stuff that you talk about and we talk about. The first one it does voice, and it's very easy. It works on a PC. You just click the the microphone button. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to go into a chat, and the one that I use, I think is that second one. I can't see it too well, but the
stream real time, right here.
So let's click on that and just talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So multimodal live API. First of all, let me define that for everybody. So multimodal is basically like what mode is it hearing or seeing you, and so the modes would be you type in and it gives you text back. That would be one mode. A second mode would be you speak to it and it speaks back. That's a second mode. The third one would be image recognition. That's there one way, and then the other way would be it creating the image, right?
Right.
So the power of AI to create the image used in reverse can also be image detection, or like it can detect what's going on in the image.
Right.
So what this tool can do is it can do all three at the same time, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And the image recognition is used to recognize what's happening on your shared screen.
Right.
So the way that you turn it on is you literally say, you can type or talk, and you can just turn on the microphone icon. I can't see totally what.
Yeah, it says start.
So share your screen, maybe.
We'll freak out. Oh, share screen. Sure. All right.
We're already.
Okay. I understand you're asking.
Well, you're going to go all in.
Here.
Wait, listen.
Okay. Okay. I will wait and listen.
Okay, thanks. So for everybody at home, that is the voice of Gemini speaking to me. And Rob, I think you can hear them as well.
Yes. I can.
Gemini, can you tell us a little bit about what you see and on my screen, and just the windows that are open on the screen that you're on?
Sure. I can tell you what I see on your screen. I see a screen sharing window with the title Share Screen and the word Year next to it, as well as some other windows. Would you like me to describe those other windows in more detail?
Just describe the interview window.
Okay, I see an interview window. It shows two people in a video call. The person on the top has the name HALSP Parks and is using a Logitech Brio camera. The person on the bottom is named Rob. There are also some controls below each of their video feeds with icons like people and a microphone. Additionally, there's text at the top of the window that indicates 249 hours of interview time remaining.
Okay, hold on for a second. That's fine. I don't want it to read my the code word at the bottom. It was about to read the link for it. So I mean, I can make a new one. It's not a big deal. But can you describe the?
Okay, you're gonna have to turn this share screen off.
Off, yeah, because it will drive us crazy.
It's like
yeah.
totally slowing down the stream.
It totally is.
I can describe the Google AI Studio window. It has a dark gray background and a white sidebar on the left.
Oh my God.
The sidebar has several menu options, including get a PI key.
Okay. I'm sorry, I stopped it.
So,
yeah, there we go.
Okay, so that's good enough for today because you're going to crash the whole thing. It's doing a lot at the same time.
Yes, it is.
That's as long as I've known Hal, he's really good at crashing computers.
Look, I push the limit. It's what I do. God damn it.
Okay. So let me try to explain what's going on there.
Yeah.
It's amazingly cool. And it's it starts to give you a really good understanding of where AI is going to go. How is this going to work? Right.
Yeah.
So it's using text, voice, and image recognition at the same time. And the image recognition is just the image it's recognizing is your desktop that you share. Right. And you can type or speak to it, and you can reference the screen that it's seeing, which is unbelievably cool.
Yeah.
And the one area that I'll demo next week is think about it in terms of learning a new software.
Yeah.
And many times you do one of two things. You either read text that talks about how to use something, and it sort of text walks you through doing something.
Right.
Or you watch a YouTube video and some person's got his or her screen share, and they're doing something and you're following along. Right.
Right.
So I think I saw an article that said something like 40, I'm saying this and I'm not sure if I'm right, so don't quote me, but it's something like 45 to 50% of YouTube videos are tutorial videos.
Yeah.
So as big as Google is, let's say roughly half of Google videos are tutorial videos. The way you learn when you're doing that is you watch and then you apply, but it's based on what that person is doing. So let's say you could use this system to effectively learn how to use a software specifically to do the thing that you came there to do, which is effectively a tutorial happening real time.
Yeah.
And it's completely custom to you. And this can do it today, right now.
Yeah. And I believe I have the Google AI subscription or whatever, because since we've been doing this, I've been subscribing to all of them basically so that we can compare and contrast and all this stuff. But I'm fairly certain it's free. The stream real time part of it. You don't?
I do not pay for Gemini, and it works fine on my computer.
Yeah. So I don't think, you don't have to pay for that part of it. I think you only have to pay for the API key aspect of it, where you can make your own software and pull it out. But as far as Google is concerned, this is free. So anything you want to learn how to do, that's on your screen, within reason, shame on you guys, quit it. I pity the description videos we're going to get of this guy trying to. I see a window that says Pornhub at the top, and there are images on the.
It's going to happen.
Totally. On one side, there is a list of sexual preferences and positions. Right.
I see below your crop. What are you doing?
Right, yeah, exactly, right. I noticed your webcam is cropped a little higher than usual. It's tits up, as it were. So I don't doubt it. But at the same time, the ability to learn how to use software, for one, is great. The other thing is you could do this with a camera. So you can use the camera on your phone, or you can turn on a webcam and then let's say I grab my webcam and I'm having problems with this, with plumbing or something like that. You can literally put the webcam on it and go, what the hell? And it'll go, oh, I see. What I see is the underside of your sink, and there's clearly a leak going on there or whatever. And you should probably buy some new cleaning supplies because those have obviously been sitting for far too long. And, what you're going to need is this kind of a wrench. It's this size. You will need to tighten this first. And if you're going to change anything out, you're going to need to do these steps in this order. And I'll walk you through it as you do it. But let's do step one. It will talk you through it like it's over your shoulder.
Yes. So I started just testing and playing with this because I do a lot of 3D work. I use a program called SolidWorks, and I use a program called Modo. I do a lot of rendering, and the company does that too. And I've been we don't actually use Blender for production work, but I've been wanting to try to get it and use it for production in the company. I just am so used to using other softwares that I haven't really spent the time to learn how to do it specifically in Blender. So what I did is I put up Blender, and I put up this Google AI Studio. And it was the first time, if anybody's been watching a while, so Hal loves to speak to it. Yes. I'm not a big person I don't speak to the AI, I just type. But it was the first time that speaking made sense to me in my workflow. And what I did is I literally shared the screen. I had my hands on the keyboard and the mouse working it. Right. And then I would speak specifically to what I was doing, and I would ask it to tell me what to do or tell me how to do something. And it would describe it verbally, right? So you can walk through there. And what was amazing about my experience was, as I went, I didn't like how it was working. Meaning I would say, how do I make a cube? And it would go, you make a cube by step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And I was like, I can't keep up, right?
Right.
So then I just said, from now on, don't tell me all the directions at once. Tell me one at a time, and wait for me to tell you to go to the next one. And then I asked it the next question, and boom, it did it.
Yeah.
Right? It did it exactly the way. So tailoring it to your way of doing stuff it's the power of this stuff we're talking about, right?
Right.
Now, this thing that we're describing is not yet fully integrated, meaning what the next level will be is, instead of speaking to you the instruction, it can literally move your mouse over there and show you where it is.
Just do it. Right. Or highlight the menu or something.
Your mouse is your own, and it'll put a circle around the menu you need to click.
Where you need to click,
put a circle around the next thing you need to do, right? There's so many things that, as you just sort of take your brain and let it flow with what the capabilities are, because it can make images too. Yeah. It can draw on your screen, no problem, right?
Right.
It will be able to.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that I've seen that's a very good, solid way to describe what AI is going to be, in my opinion.
Right. Yes, I agree. And it will be like a coworker that knows the software. If it's a brand new piece of software, instead of you having to take forever to get up to speed on it. Okay, so there's a thing since we've talked about this, and I've been on the road, so I haven't been able to do it yet, but I'm so excited to use this. There's a program that goes with Logic called Superior Drummer. And it's an add-on. It's not part of Logic, which is the recording software that I use, the Apple software. and I love it. And and Superior Drummer sounds fantastic, and it has like you can get like drum beats from really famous drummers and patch, and they do like 7 different intros and 30 different verses and choruses, and you can organize them by feel, and you can tap and it will come up. Okay, there's so many features, and you look at the window on it and it's just overwhelming. Like, god damn, there's so many buttons, and I know I'm not using this anywhere near as efficiently as I could, and it's parts of it are still opaque and I don't get it. And I'm so excited to just like turn this thing on and go, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. I want to set up a song where I can lay out the drums in a single thing. And then later I want to break out all the tracks into separate tracks for mixing so that I can mix them as live drums. Then I want to give them to my drummer and go, hey, this is the part. Learn the part or add your own flair to it. And then we'll re-record those. And then if we need, we can quantize them to what the original was, so I can use, I can mix and match some of the sounds if I want some more electronic or whatever. And so it will be able to walk me through all those opaque parts of my use BFD3. You like that, Manchita? I've heard great things about BFD3. Big fucking drums or whatever. I don't want to say it's in the... but anyways, there are certain aspects of software. I have always been dogged by the thing with Rob's got family stuff. It's all totally good.
You're like catching me. I was like in the suburbs looking at a machine tool this morning, and then I came back and
you just want to rub it in, don't you?
For the kids.
You just want to rub it in.
Yeah,
I want to be in the suburbs looking at a machine tool. Damn it! But but the idea is that there are so many. I've always felt like if I ever started a channel from scratch and I wasn't doing politics at all, I would be doing how to get the most out of your iPad. How to get the most out. Oops, you froze for a second, but that's probably on my end. There you go. Whoops, where'd he go? He went away. He'll be back in just 1 second. We shall see what we shall see. There he is. He's back. Yay. Sorry.
Yeah. AI translated to heat in your Apple computer.
So here's what I was saying though. If I had to start from scratch and I was like, I'm going to do a video series on YouTube, it would be like all the things you're not using on your phone, all the things you're not using on your computer, all the things that are there that would make your life so much easier that you're not using, because you get most stuff we grab these things and we're like, we're so happy that they do the things we're already doing well, and they might do them a little faster or a little cleaner or whatever. But they have all, the software designers on all these things work really hard on customization and all these abilities to do things either to be more intricate in the changes you make or, quick and dirty ways of doing stuff. And you might not know either. You might just be in this middle zone of I do what I can do, right? And I feel like I'm so excited to try that part of it out specifically for like, here's what you're missing about your phone. Like your phone can do like 6, I'll give you an example. This is going to be stupid, but on your iPhone now, your little menu thing that you can pull up, which has, all your little icons. I've always had a problem with the phone camera and QR codes. If you tap it wrong, it changes the image. It wants to it thinks you want to zoom or something. But if you tap, it gives you a little menu, but it's really small. Well, you can add a QR code camera to the buttons, to the main buttons, and you just swipe down. And anytime you see a QR code, instead of trying to use your regular camera and lump through, this camera is trained just to do that. You can add that. That has been a lifesaver for me. It has been so irritating to try to fix that. And I know there are hundreds of things in the software that I use to make videos and music and all this stuff. God, had we had this during fucking Sexy Liberal, when I was doing the virtual home shows where I was having to do I was learning Adobe After Effects on the fly to do special effects because I was filming by myself. If I'd have just had access to this, oh my God.
In the work that we do,
we
work with a bunch of different clients, right? So let's say that we're doing some video editing and we use After Effects, but then the client uses DaVinci Resolve, let's just say as an example.
Sure.
We might not take that project if we don't know it, or we don't want to spend the time, because the time it would take us to learn it versus just, we wouldn't make any money on it, let's say. But it's just one example. We do this all the time. If you had, After Effects and you know how to do it, you generally know how to do the work.
Yeah.
But you just don't know like the details of the buttons that it takes to work in a different software.
Yes.
If you have this layer over the top of it where you just conceptually speak to what you want to do, and it can translate that into how to do it in that particular thing, you've just expanded your ability. In this case, for our work, we can take on a project that we wouldn't have been on before, right? There's so many things like that in life where you just do the status quo because adding on something new costs more than the benefit for it, right? This changes that equation completely.
Right. The availability. Did I freeze or am I okay?
We're just kind of a little choppy, so I'm kind of trying to be careful not to talk over you.
You're doing good. I'm not worried. This is a. I'll show you this real quick. I want to let's see if I can put this up on the screen with us and just tempt the fates even more. But let's see. Brink. Yeah, there we go. This is an article in Forbes. Now, what we're talking about with this this Google Gemini thing is that it's kind of an agent. It's almost like a non-invasive agent where it doesn't do the work for you, but it shows you exactly where to go and stuff if you're trying to do some things, right? And so the next big phase that everybody is talking about is this AI agent stuff that that we're talking about. Is that your computer will just go ahead and do the work for you.
Right. And I think that's generally what people are most afraid of. Yeah. Is that next step.
And so this, and it is, I understand why. Hold on, I was trying to like hide all the superfluous crap that was in there. But the important part of this article stood out to me was the 7 levels of AI agents, from the barely anything to the, oh my God, it does everything. Right?
And maybe I've never really liked the term agent. I mean, it's there, so we have to deal with it. But,
exactly, like AI.
Agent to me sounds like another person doing it for you, which again is humanizing AI.
Yep.
And I've not read the article, but I'm just going to like take how I would like define the 7 levels of AI agents.
Sure.
And you could probably get to like 4 or 5 before it ever left and did something else for you, right?
Yes.
And maybe that's maybe in my mind, it going off and doing something for you without you asking, that's where agent starts.
Right.
And we use it a lot. I personally use it a lot and never even approach that. Not even close.
So let me. And I want to get your take on these as well, because this is what they call the primary ones in this situation. These are the number one is what's called a simple reflex agent, and they're the most basic type. They make decisions primarily on their current perceptions without memory or context. They just do kind of it's almost like image generation, sort of. An automatic door sensor is a simple reflex agent. When the sensor detects movement near the door, it triggers the mechanism to open. And you can make like Arduino and Raspberry Pi and small single computer board kind of AI reflexive things for all kinds of sensors that just automatically do something. But it's based on a decision, maybe time of day, like your hue lights and stuff have a little bit of that in it, right?
So I would... in terms of all the things you talk about, that's an Arduino.
Yeah. Right. Yes, I agree. That would be, and you program that in so it can make a couple of different decisions, based on factors.
Right.
Model-based AI, model-based reflex agents are more advanced than simple reflex agents, and they maintain an internal model of the world. So this is where the LLM stuff starts taking off. And so this is an agent that acts on a myriad of factors and memory about stuff. You like it when this happens, or you want this to happen only when these other things happens. But I can make a decision if it's leap year and it's not normally a Tuesday with a, or it's the third Thursday of just 1 month. November, the last Thursday of 1 month, November. So that's Thanksgiving, and we will do things leading up to Thanksgiving that we don't do in every last Thursday of the month and stuff. Like complicated, but not too complicated. Little lead time memories. The other ones, go ahead.
I can't read that, but I would call that. We've talked in the past about how LLM is just another type of machine learning.
Yes.
In machine learning, there are a ton of different ways to solve a problem. I'll call it like techniques to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So the second one there would be machine learning. Like you'd have to use a specific way to solve the problem.
Right.
And you would choose that up front. So it's a model based, meaning there's a way, how it's going to do it, and it does it that way.
Right. So gold-based agents are like GPS. Like you're in your car, you want you give it a goal. How do I get to my destination? And it runs through several things. It checks traffic. It checks roads and travel time, and maybe speed traps if it knows you've got a lead foot or something. All those factors, and then it gives you the primary route to choose and then two other possibilities so that you can make the decision for yourself. But you give it a goal and it finds the information, right? So that one's, we interact with those all the time.
GPS, that would be like the traveling salesman problem, where it's like the UPS driver wants to like drop off all the packages to this list of addresses. What's the most efficient way to get from A to B to C to D?
Right. And then the utility-based agent would be the automated version of that, where the truck is autonomously driven, and it not just picks the next first best available route or whatever. It actually goes on that route. It achieves something. I think you've talked about like factory robots with any level of autonomy. That's what this would be. Like you go, this piece needs to go here. You do the best way with the sensors on you that say don't bump into anything. You do the best you can. That's what would be a utility-based agent. And this is in robotics, especially, probably utility-based agents will be the primary function of those things. Yes.
I can't read. Read it. It's too small, so I'm not sure. But if I'm riffing off of the way you just described it,
it's like pretty close.
A robot is very like tight in its ability to go outside the box, if you will, or go outside of the rules that it's given to do the thing. So if it doesn't work the way it was programmed to do, then it's not going to work.
Right. Well, this is like an example, an autonomous car that not only follows traffic rules, but also adjusts its speed, path, and other gears based on passenger comfort, safety, and road conditions to ensure the best possible driving experience. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So like instead of a robot arm, like we talk about these old ones that they would just move, make it do the thing, and then everybody just stays out of the way because it's basically just a catapult in different. Like I was talking about on the show, but I watched Kingdom of Heaven, and they really show like these the old flip catapults where they drag the piece of the counterweight
it's like a trebuchet or something like that.
Yeah, it's just amazing technology considering the time, and it's so fast though. The second you do it, there's no stopping it or varying its possibilities. It's just going to do what it does because the physics will carry themselves out. So old-fashioned robots that would do that were just arms basically that would rivet something, and if the car's not in the right spot, for example, it'll rivet holes in the door, like it'll screw it up because whatever. These will have a sensor on it that circles in on where the rivet hole is so that it will hit it and it will not choose. I fell in love with robots apparently. That's hilarious. I did what.
There it goes. There it goes.
I was trying. That was a rivet hole, not a heart. But so this is the next one is, and I know you can't read this, so I'll give you is learning agent. They're capable of improving their performance-based experience. These agents consist of four main components: a learning element that adapts actions, a critic that evaluates the performance, a performance element that executes the task, and a problem generator that suggests exploratory action. So it gives itself alternative solutions by faking problems. And if you run into this wall, what would you do? If you run into this wall, what would you do? Right. And
then once it's solved for that, like, so let's say your Roomba is in the room. I'm serious. That would be,
yes.
Roombas learn.
Yes,
so
they do.
It basically uses bumping into the wall to know where the wall is. And once it knows where the wall is, it doesn't go past that point again.
Well, from a digital standpoint, the TikTok algorithm is like an evil version of this. That's what this also does. It learns what you like or what you will click on or one of the tricky things about the TikTok algorithm that makes it so dangerous is that it checks your hovering and it shows you more stuff that you might want to click on, but morally you don't feel like you should because you hovered on it to take a peek, but you didn't click on it because for some reason. But it will check how long you hover and then it will make a decision based on, oh, they really want to click on this. So let's just fill their feed and we'll tempt them into doing it. And then that will happen. And then we'll just get them down this road. And it directs your attention by following your baser instincts or whatever. And that's very much. And then multi-agent systems are the sixth level. That's where you've got both things happening at once, a learning one and a utility one. In a smart city traffic management system, multiple agents like traffic lights, sensors, autonomous vehicles work together to optimize traffic flow, reduce congestion, improve safety. Think of like Waze. If it uploaded its data to the traffic light system in a city, so it goes, hey, we're all jacked up and everything's slow here, or there's an accident, it would adjust the traffic lights around to help the traffic flow get away from wherever the accident was, or allow, say in the future, this would be kind of amazing, it could adjust the flow of traffic and lights so that an ambulance it knew was coming to a crash site could get through instead of just sitting behind people waiting to make a left turn because it's a dumb light, right? That would be amazing. Yeah. That would be a great use of it. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, that can happen now. I mean, they already use the data coming back. So like, let's say Google Maps, you type in a place, it knows the traffic based on using other people's use of that product to know along the way how fast it's actually going. So now you take that, so that's still within its own system, but now you take that data and you use it for the outside other systems.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. That starts to get crazy.
Yeah. It would be, and then the last one they have is hierarchical agents. And this is it would be its example is industrial robotics, but the idea is that it has a complex task. Instead of just doing one thing over and over again, it would go, okay, I'm a robot, I'm building a car, and the first thing I will need to do is make sure the frame is in the right place. So I will trigger what will bring the frame to me. Then I need to assess the parts that I need to overlay, put the engine in first, and those kind of things, and I will do that. And then I will, so that if you think of all the robots in a line as one big robot, but just with parts. Almost think of it as a digestive system. It eats the parts of the car and shits out a car. And during the along the line, it starts going, ooh, I got a little gas. I need to take some Pepto-Bismol or whatever. Like that, along the. I think it's a decent analogy. It's stupid, but it works.
Your examples are so good.
Thank you very much. Yes. But it's you know what I'm talking about. Like if you're working along an assembly line, or you have a bunch of agents that are tied together, a hierarchical agent will, like you're talking about when you were talking to the Gemini thing, and you were like, "Don't tell me all the steps. Give me the steps one at a time." That that understanding that it gave you the first step. It needs that step. These have to be in order. It understands that. It understands you have to complete this step before it moves on to the next one. That logic is enormous and is probably one of the heavy lifting things that's only popped onto the scene in the last, 3 months, really?
Probably. It's like, I think 4.0 was the start of it, but now in ChatGPT, but ChatGPT now has 0.1. And I think 0.1 is considered, like 4.0 is kind of like a first try at using sort of more logic, and it's more multi-step logic. Yeah. And now 0.1 is like purposely doing it all the time.
Right. So so those 7 agents things, that's where you get both between in all of those, you can basically find the seeds of robotics and robots helping us do things or work or do, mining, safety, bomb diffusion, anything shitty and dangerous that people shouldn't have to do. And software that you ask it to execute a specific task. It checks in with you before certain steps if you ask it to, or you go, just do it. Within these parameters, just do it. So there's a thing called, have you seen Do Browser? I don't know if you've seen this. It's a pay service, and I'm not going to do it because it seems obnoxious. And this is where things are going. And it's a stupid name too. But it's a browser assistant, and what it does is it'll do shopping. It will automate filling out of forms. It will do dashboard navigation on your computer. It will automate tasks. So if you need to buy a plane ticket, you go, I need a plane ticket to Toledo. It has to be under $500. If all of your details are already logged into those sites, like you have, bookmarks of, you use Expedia or something like that, it will open that site, log in with your credentials, look up plane, flights, choose one that it thinks you will like. If you said, I want it in the morning before noon, and you tell it to do this, it will just go through the process, and it will go all the way through booking the flight. And even, I guess in the future, you could go check in for my flight when it gets closer. Yeah. So,
and that's the power of the LLM really is it's that like, if I were to describe when I came to Las Vegas last week or 2 weeks ago when we saw each other, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay over the night before or the night after,
right?
And it kind of depended on what the flight times were. So most people can sort of articulate verbally, well, if a flight is leaving by 6 p.m. on Wednesday, I'll take that. But if not, and it's more than this much, then I want to go on Thursday morning and blah, blah, blah. And it will understand that.
Yeah.
And then make a decision based on the criteria that you did.
Right.
And, sometimes it gets it wrong, but
You're right.
we're at the beginning of this.
Exactly. So
technology.
this Do Browser thing is it's a Chrome extension. You add it to your Chrome browser, and so it interacts with all the stuff that you can do through Chrome extensions and all that, right? And it like, I think on here, let's see if it shows this part. It might be fairly terrible. It's like, I don't know if this audio will play on this or whatever. But it's going through this guy's stuff, and it's like looking up videos. It like, find me a video of this. I don't know why it's asking for Creed. That's hilarious. Okay, there's no way anybody ever would use that to play a Creed song.
Find me the best band in the entire world.
Right, yeah. Knowing my music tastes embarrass me in front of my friends. With arms wide open, right? So, but you can, this whole thing is like, Do Browser is an AI-powered Chrome extension that understands natural language and can automate any task in your browser. You type do in your address bar or press Control K, and it will jump in, and it will open up a side window, and then you start talking to it. It has natural language control. It is customizable. It can do web search, shopping assistant, form automation, dashboard navigation, and task automation. And this is the kind of thing where you can send an email using my Gmail account to blah, blah, blah. It'll open up your Gmail. It will draft one. It will look through your contacts, find their information, and do all this. Now, it is, I gotta say, this is $25 a month, so fuck that. But and it's in kind of beta form, so it's, again, I don't want to be the guinea pig for somebody. Pay to be a guinea pig, please, right? But this is going to be very normal. This is one of those things where these guys are going to be out of business in a matter of months. The existence of this thing is one, you know what I mean?
The reason why I'm like, the Google AI it's literally a web page directly from Google. So like,
yes,
there's no middle person like putting something in between anything, and it can do like a lot of things that all of these add-ons are trying to do, right? So like that's the difficulty of trying to build a business right now in this in this field, because like you have no idea where it stops. Like
Yes. Right.
where just the basic version of it stops.
Well, look, what people are saying at the bottom of the page says, dude, holy shit, this is incredible. As of now, the best browser AI agent out there, fast, smart, and accurate. You son of a bitch, this is amazing. These are the quotes from people trying it out or whatever. And it's by a guy named Sawyer or somebody, and it says 2025 Smooth Brain LLC, which is a pejorative. Smooth Brain is like a pejorative used by, largely by right-wing Gamergate tech assholes, against like normies and shit like that. So I don't trust it. I won't use it. But the tech that they're selling is clearly going to be free in a very short order.
If it's not already there.
Yes.
It's, yeah.
I mean, you can make one. You can make one. You and I both know that we could probably, if I spent a couple of, 48 hours, I could put together an AI agent in my Mac that will
absolutely.
do, automatically. And ChatGPT can now code, so I could make an app that does that for me.
Right. Yeah.
What's SaaS? What's the acronym SaaS? I always get
software as a service.
Yes, right. Which seems just hilarious. Apparently, that's dead. That everybody's saying this is what's going to kill SaaS is that is agent AI is going to destroy software as a service. That you'll just ask your computer, your operating system. You'll ask your operating system to do something for you instead of having a piece of software do it.
Yeah, well, I was telling you the other day, so we're building up our machine shop, or trying to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we don't currently run is called an MRP. I think it's an MRP system. It's basically like most companies have it, where you're just tracking everything basically. And they can be very, very expensive pieces of software. And they're almost never, they're like cloud-based. So that would be something in the software as a service level. And really what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, they're just trying to get you to subscribe, because it's cheaper, or they make more money if you're always subscribed to them, and then you dedicate your company to using, let's say, Oracle or something like that.
Right.
You can't switch. I mean, you can, but it's astronomically expensive. So I just thought, well, why don't I just try to use Notion to do this? Because I don't want to spend that kind of money.
Right.
And using ChatGPT and Notion's AI, I was able to make a pretty darn good system that worked well enough for us.
Yeah.
So why would I go pay, $100 or $200 or $300 a month for some top of the line system when I can literally just speak to ChatGPT and say, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
That layer that's the thing we're trying to talk about, is the layer is dissolving.
Yes.
The layer between you needing to do something and finding the tool to do it, it's dissolving.
I mean, you could look at the death of the App Store ultimately, or the death of, because you can, like Apple's gaming platform at some point will be like, I want to play chess and I want all the characters to look like Avengers versus the villains in the Marvel universe, and I want to play against 3 different levels of people, and I want it to take this long, and I want it to teach me to play chess while I do it. So it doesn't give me hints, but it gives me theories so I can learn what these moves are called and all that kind of. You'll be able to speak that into existence, and it will have all the basis of that gameplay built into Apple gaming or something along like. Or I want a Pac-Man game that's 3-dimensional, but instead of ghosts, it's the frogs from Frogger and blah, like whatever. I mean, and other people will post there, so you could maybe pay because you want to see their design, but not because you need it to play a game or do a thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. And I guess the thing that I try to think about in this case to not let it overwhelm is just to think about the idea that, like, to go back to what you're trying to do. Like, we always just, what is our goal? What are we trying to do?
Right.
And at the end of the day, we're trying to, I know you hate that term, we're trying to like make a widget, right? So I just need to get from having an idea to make a widget to having a widget.
Right.
And all the steps in between cost me money.
Yeah,
cost
and
me
time,
right?
which is the one thing you can't ever get back.
Exactly. So what we use that currently, there's some people call it a software stack. Like
Yeah.
You have all the software you use to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Effectively, these tools are going to allow that space to decrease and the cost to come down, because you rely on another company to like make the thing that you need to do the job anymore.
Right.
You can literally just ask for your computer to do it and it'll do it.
Yeah.
So when you start to get scared of that, like what I try to say is move back and say the goal was to sell a widget. So
Right.
take your mind away from making the widget and all that and start selling the widget.
Yes.
That makes sense. Or coming
Yeah.
up with what the widget is or something. Like you're still doing a job.
So one of the things, let's see, how the main thing is, where is the computing central or distributed? I never bought on recent Realizing Cloud, SaaS. Yeah, it's an excellent point. Alucius has that question. Yeah.
So most SaaS stuff is on the cloud.
Yep.
And that's where people get kind of, many people will purchase a subscription. So a good, like Adobe products,
Yeah.
Photoshop.
Yep.
It used to be that you would buy Photoshop version, let's say 3 or 4 or 5.
Yep.
And you would get a CD and you'd put it on your computer and it would exist on your computer. And when you wanted to get to Photoshop 7, you'd have to buy it again. And
Or buy an update,
back
right.
in the day, I remember Photoshop costing, I don't know, like $1,200.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a suite or something. Just
Yeah.
use $1,000 as an example.
Yeah.
So then Adobe decided, oh, well, people aren't buying 7 and 8 because 6 is good enough.
Yeah.
Like they can do their job in 6 for years.
Yeah.
We do this in CAD all the time. There's a couple of our clients that are like 6 versions of our CAD software back.
Yeah.
We just run the old one and we run the new one. And when we work with them, we run the old one, right?
Right.
Anyway, so instead, Adobe said, now you can't buy it. We're going to like let you download it and you're renting it every month for, let's say, $20.
Yeah.
Right. So it forces the upgrade path and you're sort of in their software, let's say for 2, 3, 4 years, and it's 20 times 12, 24, 36, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of corporations get things done, like HR,
Sure.
or tracking expenses, or you name it. There's a little thing that they've got to do,
Yeah.
and they'll go buy a cloud version subscription for that, and they might have 200 of those things, and it's this like crazy web of stuff.
Right.
And they could be per person at the company. If there's 1,000 employees, they
Yep.
could be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars,
Right.
millions of dollars just on.
Whoops, did I lose you for a second? That's me. It's probably me. Probably me being a dick. Like, is my computer cooking? I can't tell if Rob froze or I froze or both or neither. Chat room. Probably me. I blame myself. Here, I want. He'll pop back in. Hold on. That wasn't me. I swear to God. Here's what I was going to show Rob. There he is. Rob's back. There he is. 3, 2.
I froze, but I could hear you.
Oh, okay.
So it has to be your computer.
Yeah. I blame myself. There you go. So I was going to show you along those lines. Salesforce, which was a big company, is now calling itself
Salesforce
is now Agent Force, which sounds so like 80s comic book name, but Agent Force 2.0 even. Let's see.
Salesforce had an AI sort of sidecar
Yeah.
for the past year or two, and they know it's coming, right? Like,
Yeah, totally.
They're like one of the biggest software as a service companies out there, if not
Yep.
the biggest.
Right. So they are designing their agents that you use, and which includes your chatbot that you talk to people. You can run your Slack. You can create all kinds of like these agents that operate as another person essentially in the feed, but that might pick up the Slack and do a portion of the work or directed work. Like if you have an office where let's say, like a robotic assembly line, you know that there are certain things that happen. This data comes in, it is added to this, and then we act on it based on 3 factors, right? That's just how it works. We're not changing that because it's the law, it's accounting, it's whatever. You can set something up digitally like this that's like a digital robot that does the assembly line of the part of the work that doesn't require human creativity and thinking or interaction or relationships, right?
Yeah, I mean, in Salesforce, it's like I called a potential customer, they didn't answer. And then a week later, I tried to email them. And then a week later, I called them again. And they finally answered. And they told me their son's name was Joe.
Yeah.
So next time I call, I'm going to say, hey, how's Joe? Like,
right.
It's called a CRM, a customer relationship management system.
That's right.
Basically what Salesforce is.
Yeah. And so
it's a little more complicated.
But their Agentforce thing automates that for Salesforce. Right. So they built it for their own work, to use by Salesforce. But it's also something that they're going to use, that you can turn into whatever else that fits into that CRM kind of workflow idea. People are mentioning, by the way, that they haven't got a speaker yet in the House, and we'll talk about that later on the afternoon show about how Mike Johnson may or may not make it, and I don't really give a shit that if they want to bite each other's necks, who cares? But I will say this: what do you think about agenting meets governing?
Governing is the perfect place for this to happen.
Right.
People are going to be freaked out about it, but if you can isolate the decision process to a definable criteria,
right,
and it doesn't deviate, there's no emotion in it. Like, I mean, and the courts are where emotion should be, right? Like.
Yes.
Like you talk about law, and then all of a sudden a crime happened or a thing happened, and you need to take into account the situation and not just the letter of the law.
Right.
Like, that should be happening in the courts. But when it comes to law, like this, like they should be using AI to write laws. In fact, I'm sure somebody's thinking about this, but you could take all the laws ever written in the US and feed them into an AI and basically say, like, just give me one more simplified document that tells me what the law is today.
Yeah.
Right? Because laws are like, it started out 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And then they're like Amendment 1, Amendment 2, Amendment 500, Amendment 3000. And it's like this crazy stack up of changes and then we still have laws on the books from the 1800s and stuff that nobody enforces them. So nobody even knows they need to be repealed until some asshole gets off on a technicality because they dig through and find, like, here's laws that, a woman can't change her hair on Sunday in North Carolina because it causes home strife, and it's been on the books since, 1885, right? There's a bunch of those. And so And so if you are able to create laws with AI and as AI in mind, or with the use of this, then you technically don't need lawyers anymore.
Right.
And well, you might need it to argue what I just was talking about, the soft stuff. But yeah, and speaking of the speaker, I'm very curious who's gonna come out taking back the terms that MAGA has taken. Right?
Yes, right.
This is a moment where Democrats could absolutely become the America First party.
Yes.
And they could say, you know what? We don't want H-1 visas.
Yeah.
H-1B visas. We want to train Americans to code.
Yes.
Why isn't that the message? And you can use that to get yourself right in between Trump and MAGA and Elon Musk. And
I agree.
Be like, they're not America first. They're immigrant first.
Yeah.
H-1B immigrants first. We're America first. Here's our proposal for training Americans to do the jobs that they take out. Yeah,
supporting trade schools and DeVry type academies for coding. Make sure that kids have access to computers in public schools so that they're much more comfortable with their use. Absolutely.
Right. I feel like, and this is just a commentary from my personal, I feel like we're so concerned about bracketing our thoughts to let everybody know that we're thinking about everybody.
Right.
That we're missing layups. Like
I agree.
And this is just, again, my opinion. I don't know about yours, but the thing that the Fetterman interview the other day,
right?
Like he got kind of trashed by the left.
Yeah.
And I didn't think he said anything terrible. Like he's a Democratic senator from Pennsylvania. Like,
yeah, right.
And Trump hasn't even become president yet. So when he said Trump is talented, he's right. Like Trump figured out how to win the election. Like he's got a talent. It might be for evil.
Right.
But he's saying the truth.
Sure.
And if you're in Pennsylvania and like the guy hasn't even started yet and you're trashing half of the people that voted for him, which is half of your electorate as well.
Yeah.
Like you got to give the guy some space to be like, to be local, to be his local thing. Right.
Yes.
But these are like opportunities where we can take all this stuff back.
Yeah.
Because they didn't mean any of it. And
No.
we really do mean it.
Right. We actually want to be Santa Claus to some degree. Make sure that,
Right.
people are taken care of and the good are rewarded and the bad are punished in a normal way and the like. And none of that is true about this shit, about what they've been saying. So, yeah, I mean, it's like freedom. Obviously they're for freedom, except
Right.
gays to marry and women to, choose when to have a baby or when not to. Right.
Harris kind of started to show us the way there, like
Yeah.
basically just take the thing and run with it.
Right.
And when you put that wedge between them, like you're doing to them what they did to us.
Yes.
Like you want to use the wedge.
The
And get them
tactic
to-
works. The tactic
Right.
works,
So-
and it is not a moral question. It is simply a tactic. Why you're using it is the moral
Right.
choice, and
So,
who you're using it on.
A Fetterman can be like, somewhat neutral
Yep.
in his state because he's got to get elected in his state,
Mm-hmm.
and he can let the bulwark trash Trump. Like we don't
Right.
even need to trash him.
Right.
Let the right of center people trash him. They're already doing it.
Yep.
So,
And we can focus
like, we
on
can stand back and-
how do we help Americans and start talking about there were a couple people who were saying, even Bernie came on board with if he wants to do this, then great, whatever their expense was, negotiating Medicare and Medicaid prices. Now, I think he's bullshitting. I think a lot of people around him think he's bullshitting, but he's saying he wants to do it. So call his bluff on it. So,
Right, exactly.
act like you're supportive of it. Hey, man, yeah, let's see. Like at the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling was a great example of that. Like all of a sudden he fucking comes out and says he wants to get rid of the debt ceiling. Are you shitting me? Like this is Democrats got shit on left and right by Republicans 2 years ago for the conversation about how we've been talking about for a long time. The debt ceiling's not in the Constitution. It's not real. It's the debt ceiling, if it exists at all, should exist before you allocate the money, because once you've allocated it, you got to pay it back. You got to find some way to fund it because you've allocated the funding. If you raise the debt ceiling every time you add to the deficit, technically. You can't just call it back later because you don't like what other people did. You got to be consistent, and that's the other part that they don't want to do. So that fight matters.
Yeah, and I think it's like I think maybe I'm saying us on the left, like we're really quick to want to be right, and we're really quick to want to point out that, well, that was like he said that before, and now he's saying this, and
Yes.
that's the situation is wrong.
Yeah.
The right doesn't do that. The right finds spots to throw sand in the gears, and they throw sand in the gears.
Yeah.
Like that's how they operate, and
Right.
we can do the exact same thing. So
Right, because we
Trump
do have
says-
we also have something to offer along with it. It isn't just doing that, which is what they do. It's just doing that. Right.
So if Trump says, let's get rid of the debt ceiling, then a lot of times Democrats don't even react because they're like, well, we don't even want the debt ceiling.
Right.
And it's like, no, don't do that. Like throw a wedge in it. Like say, why do you want to get rid of the debt ceiling? Like you want to, all you billionaires want to put, the
Yeah.
country on a credit card? Like use their same damn
Well,
language.
I
They've
agree.
been saying it for years.
Yeah.
Come right back at them.
Yeah.
With exactly the things they said and take it back. Like
Yes.
they're giving us layups. We need
yes.
to start taking them.
I agree. I totally agree. And this is a fairly, I think, common thing amongst our side tends to be, it's the knife to a gunfight analogy, I think, but it's also the sort of like be the bigger person and all that kind of stuff. And then we like it occasionally when we get a good Dem in there who can dunk or understand like I've been arguing about, like, some people are flipping out, and people that I love dearly have been flipping out about some Democrats saying positive things about Trump or whatever. Well, when you know that he is an easily manipulated dolt and he's being attacked by his own, how you get what you want from an idiot like that is you go, man, you're doing great, pal, and you pat him on the back, and then you go back to you file lawsuits, and he doesn't even know what that part means. You do the complicated part that actually attacks what he's doing, and the overt stuff he can go, but he's my buddy, like he's that fucking dumb.
So that was my point with Ukraine.
Yes.
Use all the things that we know about Trump. He loves dictators.
Yep.
He loves being right. He loves when people owe him. He loves being celebrated. Freaking do it. Don't worry about the fact that Trump gets credit for winning the war in Ukraine.
Right.
Give it to him, because we want Ukraine to win the war.
Yes.
Right? So and he's not going to be around he might not even make it another 4 years. Right?
No.
And if he does, there's no, and so that's the other thing that Fetterman said that kind of the reaction to it kind of irked me.
Sure.
His explanation, the way I heard it, was we're all worried that there's this great man that beat us, and we can't compete with him. But his point was to say he's not the person you're making him out to be.
Yes.
He's talented, but he barely won, right?
Yes.
It's okay. And so along the way, if you know that you have a path 2 or 3 years out, praise the guy and try to get what you want.
Take advantage of his weaknesses and push back on his strengths. Make his strength a weakness in that regard, is that he so needs to be liked that if he thinks you like him, he'll take a Democrat who's just nice to him and isn't rude to him over a Republican who's trying to give him what he wants but recognizes he's too fucking stupid to know how to get it, and he's like, you're gonna screw it up or whatever. They get mad at him, and he's like, they're rhinos, we can't trust them. You're like, okay, let him hate that person. It's a strategy. It will work.
If we put the wedges in, it gives us two other things. One, it lets Republicans do the fighting for us.
Yes.
We don't need to fight anymore. They'll fight for us.
Yes.
They're already doing it, and he's not even president. So stop fighting and start doing good. And the good is, let's train workers so we don't have to have H-1B visas.
Yeah.
Why is Musk, a billionaire, so concerned about saving money on an H-1B visa when all he has to do is go train someone for the same amount of money? He's a billionaire. What's the deal?
Right. Why is he penny pinching on the backs of Americans? That's a great talking point. Absolutely.
Why can't Trump hire local people to operate his clubs? Why does he need to go to? And I know you know why, and you said why. That's not the message. The message is not to be right. The message is to wedge.
Yes.
And get them to
get
fight.
The crowbar in the crack
solutions.
and start wiggling it, because and then when everybody goes, it's going to break. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought, Trump, you were America first. Why aren't you hiring Americans first?
Right.
It's that simple. It's that simple.
I agree. And so it's such a smart methodology. We need to create a tactical AI agent that's like Machiavellian AI or
that's
something.
What we started working on.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it.
Me too.
And and the last thing I want to say, I saw, this is just, I'm in comment mode and I'm on a riff.
Yes,
now, so.
totally good.
Okay. So I saw, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, you were on Cliff Schechner's show.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was on yours. And it was you, Cliff, and Tony Michaels.
Yes.
And, okay. So I think, watching that, you all are on the same side.
Yeah.
But you started to argue a little bit.
Yeah.
About, and I'm not saying anything bad about any of you. I'm just saying it was almost my way is more right and my way is more right. I think we should have
a multi-pronged attack.
No, well, that's what I was going to say. So the value of independent media is that it's like the states. The states are incubators for new ideas.
Right.
Independent media personalities are incubators for new ideas.
Right.
So when they cross each other, I think we should start to like, instead of like lumping together everybody like a Midas Touch network and stuff, instead we should be looking at like online guest etiquette training.
Right.
I'm serious. And the
Yeah.
guest etiquette is this. Why do you have a guest? Number one, the guest is brought onto your show to expand your reach and the guest's reach.
Yep.
That's number one.
Yep.
Just like on Fox News, there's an exchange there. When
Yes.
a person's on Fox News, they're selling a book. They're selling
Yeah.
a thing. And so Fox News gets something out of it and the person gets something out of it.
Right.
It's the same thing in this. So, okay, so you're there to increase each other's. The second thing you're there to do is the person visiting has a different way to talk about the same thing as the person whose the show is.
Agreed.
So purpose of it is to showcase the other voice.
Yep.
And to like incorporate the other voice into it, not to argue with them that they're right or wrong.
Sure.
Right? So if that etiquette exists, then the media sphere becomes a very broad message. And it's not about which message works. It's about touching small micro cultures, like small
Yes.
subcultures of America. And so the micro targeting happens through the smaller independent media things. And
Right.
I think that we need to stop being so like top down and let it be more bottom up.
I agree.
And so what I worry about is
Mm-hmm.
that currently coming out of this, the left independent media thinks they need to go make a right-wing media machine
Sure.
equivalent, but it doesn't, I don't think.
Well,
it needs to make
yeah, I agree.
what the left machine would be, which is more decentralized
Yeah.
and broader spread.
Right. I agree. And in terms of what you would call arguing, I would call tempering arguments, meaning that you put your argument up against somebody else's, and you on the same side of an issue, you talk it out in a way that you go, I think this is more effective, or this is more effective, and you might come to some consensus, or might temper the others. I might be more open to their sort of class argument, and they might be more open to my idea of if a man like Trump is manipulated easily, then you lose something if you don't act on that. If you just assume that his label is correct and that everybody thinks he's a master of media instead of the media are gullible assholes and who buy into that, or whatever. That argument has value for both of us to kind of hash out and put up against each other.
Right.
And again, even in our argument about it, we all did come to that, like, we're on the same side of this. It's just a matter of what tactic will be more effective, possibly. Right.
But the subgroup of individual people's audience, they might receive the message differently.
Sure.
And we have to understand that a guy like Fetterman needs to be able to say the same thing in a different way.
Right.
And a person like you and a person like Tony Michaels, who are, they're completely different ways of doing it. They both have value inside their thing. So instead of trying to like make everybody the same, and like we should be like celebrating the diversity of it. There you go. I'm using language that the Democrats love, right?
Yeah, right. You're using the jargon, and that's my and again, I appreciate this conversation because it is absolutely something that it should be at the forefront of everyone's thoughts. Trump got half the margin Hillary Clinton did in the popular vote. There was not a mandate or a landslide or any of those things. And so if you can water down their language and you can water down their talking points. I was even saying, like, making MAG shirts, Make America Great. Like, the whole point is, I
think the same thing.
Yeah,
make them blue.
Yeah, right. Blue shirts that just say MAG on them. So, like, that's what we're trying to do, is make it great, because it can always be greater. Apparently, these guys just want to take it back to what they thought was great. But there's obviously the future is ahead of us, and there's so many options. Making it great should be the daily, the constant gardening of it in that regard. You're absolutely right. So, Yeah.
Well, that message in particular is in the positive. So we are making America great versus make America great again. It's like No, we're doing it now.
Yeah,
This is how we're doing it, as opposed to, well, in the future, everything, and then it's going to be great again. That's not how it works.
Right. Yeah. It's and perfection being a road, not a destination. The goal to make America great is in and of itself, and the action of doing it is what is great. The constantly trying to improve it, make it, more honorable, more valuable, more helpful to more people, and live up to its promise. The act of even trying to do that, right, yeah.
But really, to me, the low-hanging fruit it's so easy. Is America first? Like, we should be able to steal America first with very little effort. I'm serious. Like, because
yes.
Sorry.
I'm just saying thanks to H Mods because their band played with me in Appleton, Wisconsin, and it was all that story is true.
Awesome.
A long time ago. Yeah, but yes, go ahead.
No, America First is the easiest one because obviously a bunch of rich billionaires in his cabinet, you can very easily make the argument that they are not choosing America first. They're choosing themselves first. They're choosing their profit first.
Their bottom line.
They're choosing blah, blah, blah. And Democrats can make America first by training Americans.
Right.
Building
education, infrastructure. Right.
Education.
That's right.
That's America first. Like, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Take it.
Support. Yeah. Supporting our own, industries by not outsourcing everything to China. Those kind of things.
Right.
Like supporting our
wants
allies.
To buy an American-made product.
Yep.
Exactly. So make it easier.
I agree. You're onto something. We will discuss this in our when you and I hang out if we got time next week before our next show.
I went a little afield here for Anya.
No, it's great. It absolutely is. So, anyways, I'm gonna take off and see if I can maybe bring my other Wi-Fi thing out here in case I need it for the show later. It's pretty the internet is so ass here. I need to find another location when I'm in LA to do it besides the house because it just doesn't. But that said, and I need a new laptop, but we'll get there eventually. That's the next thing.
We'll
get there. So, anyways,
I'm gonna try to convince you to buy a PC. We'll get there.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I could certainly use my OBS settings and just port them all over. Would be the the thing. But Ecamm works very well for guests when it works. I just use it under duress all the time. So
yeah.
But
all right. Well, I love seeing you. We haven't seen each other in a while. Great seeing you again. And happy New Year to the chat and everybody.
And
we'll
absolutely
see you next week with some screen sharing, right?
Yeah. Oh, it'll be crazy. I'm building a whole new window for us so that you can show your stuff and everything. Yeah, it's gonna be great. It may be in video or whatever we use. You might log into your one computer that you're showing me as a separate thing. And then just the account, the account can be its own window. We can manipulate it and move it around. So your camera would be one thing, but your desktop would be a separate image. So that
interesting.
It should.
Yeah. I see you. I can do that.
Yeah, it should work, especially if you've got two computers online or whatever. But anyways, that's behind the scenes talk. Anyways, I'm gonna go too and rest my voice a little bit. I've got an afternoon show and then I gotta sing tonight, and they just added 4 more songs, and of course they're all Sammy songs tonight. So.
As they should be.
Yeah, no rest for the weary, vocally. So, all right, I'll talk to you later.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, there he goes. All right, and thanks everybody in the chat. I will see you guys this afternoon at 3:00 Pacific time for the regular live stream. House Parks Mega Worldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, etc., etc., etc. And hopefully, I can figure out how to make the Wi-Fi not terrible.